Dr. Jackson's, we've authored bills, we've been pushed back on by the governor a number of times, so, keep on it. And so we need to be reminded this is not just babysitting, this is developing, strong people. And, we know the sayings about what it takes to build somebody and fix somebody, so it's mathematics 101.
And our workforce, some of them have bachelor's degrees, masters, and PhDs, and they're making $19. Yes.
Yeah.
And so hopefully,
Thank you.
everyone can hear this and
Thank you.
comes up say, I support the preschools.
Thank you.
Or the babies.
Moving on to the next question. What steps will Prop 6 enable the CLBC to move on? Are there any immediate, aggressive, further gains that Prop 6 lines up?
What is Prop 6? Sorry.
For people who don't know, would the members be willing to articulate Prop 6?
Sure, we're talking about the involuntary servitude.
State prisons.
Right, prisons, correct.
So what's your question? How do we?
Yeah, it basically is, what steps will Prop 6 enable the CLBC to move on? Basically, I think that there's a question about, are there any immediate, aggressive, further gains that Prop 6 lines up beyond abolition? Is there something else that is behind the strategy to move that?
Well, number one, I think it's a great opportunity that, again, there's things that directly our people care about, and the fact that we have now put something on the ballot for November to change the Constitution is actually a big deal. And so the ability to making sure that people are not being forced, right, to work to make other people rich is something that we long know that we had to dismantle. And so the fact that we got it through the process, got a super majority to agree to get it on the ballot is a big deal, but now it's the opportunity to making sure that we're on the ground, getting the votes that it needs to get over the top. And even through that process, the polling that is being done gives us more insights, right, on what is possible. It gives us more insights on the type of resources that it takes to continue to make moves to change and to get so much harmful things out of the state constitution as well.
I'd say that the underlying issue with, that Prop 6 is getting at is the fact that people who are incarcerated earn 16 cents an hour for the work that they do, and often they get punished and risk not being able to have parole hearings when they refuse to work. And so that is the nature of what Prop 6 is getting at, is ensuring that we approach people who are incarcerated as human beings with rights to be able to decide that they don't want to work and that they earn a living wage while they are working. So I think actually Prop 6 opens up a groundswell of other legislation to really change the carceral state and to change the condition of prison. And I think it's going to be a very critical piece to ensure that we can take further action to make sure that that happens.
Thank you.
It's on the ballot.
It's on the ballot.
If you all
On the
give me a
ballot,
chance to talk, it's gonna be quick and everybody gonna love what I have to say.
The consequence of this disruption, the consequence of disruption is not all of these questions getting asked and answered. So as long as we all adults, and we understand that.
Brother, and I respect, and it's been a wonderful panel. What I'm asking for, what we're asking for, first of all, is possibly a little side short panel after the discussions at a meeting. And just to say who we are, I'm executive director of People Working Together Contractor Advisory Council. Love the presentation. I've been a contractor for 30 years. Grew up in Richmond,
Now, this ain't a
California.
question.
Didn't graduate from college.
This is
Put two
This is
kids
an aside.
through college, went to
You know,
UCLA.
No.
I like the rest.
You're not being respectful to
And so
everyone
what
else.
we're asking for is a
that is
side
not
panel
right.
to discuss.
And so what we're gonna
the
do is,
construction.
if we're gonna continue that, we're gonna have to adjourn. We just can't, we have to have people respecting each other. If you have a question, Sir, we can give you an index card and like everyone else has
So,
done.
sir, now-
So that is just not, that is not right.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I think we've allotted the time that we have to today's session.
He's got a sidewalk.
All of us have the ability to visit and meet with people outside of this context, and I don't think that there will be any side panels today,
I
but
think I'm making
certainly.
it productive.
No, you're not.
Listen, I'm a business. I represent businesses in
All right, can you go to the next question?
All right,
Let's go
okay.
back to the next question.
That's
Yeah.
what we put people to work.
You're gonna be disruptive.
We
You will
put
be-
people to
The next
work.
question is
You will be escorted.
about
That's all right, I got
the
it.
context for reparations in California. As all of us know, the movement for reparations was really sparked by George Floyd's murder. Is police reform part of reparations? And if so, give some examples. And I want to just add this other piece, which is also about the family policing system, child protective services, and how Black families are disproportionately impacted by that. Are those things being thought of as part of the reparations package?
I'll take a crack at that, Mark. You know, I'm in the legislature in my last year, so I've had the opportunity to serve for 10 years, and certainly been an active member of the CLBC for these 10 years. Dr. Jackson got here in 22, right? And Assemblymember Bonta got here in 21. I will say that this work is hard. It's not easy. Just a quick reminder, I authored bills on police reform 4, 5, 6 times. And they died every year. They died after we had the Stephon Clark shooting here in Sacramento, and it wasn't until the question that summer of 2020, the summer of George Floyd, where the windows opened, because we were always pushing these issues. We pushed ACA 6 before it was ACA 6, and we always came short. And it's not us, it's other members of other seats who don't have, maybe as loud and active Black populations who push on these issues. So it did take that window for many things to happen. That summer of 2020, we had multiple police reform measures passed. I was able to put on the ballot for the first time restoring voter rights for individuals incarcerated. And I tried that multiple years. And a month after,
But they can't pass a bill to.
hold on a second. I'm trying to paint a picture here. So the month after George Floyd died, a few members says, you know what, I voted against your bill multiple times on letting people vote after they're on parole. And times have changed. So that opened up That opened up multiple bills on independent investigations, opened up bills getting ethnic studies passed, which we thought wasn't super controversial. It opened up an opportunity to go back to the ballot and revisit Prop 209, which we did, that failed. We're looking at other ways we can do as well. And that same summer, we were able to convince the legislature and the governor to start the process of looking at reparations. So that was Dr. Weber's bill during that year. So it opened up the dialogue. And it's not easy. And I know that, change is not easy. It's hard to get these bills passed. But the question was, what's coming about this reparations package? I think reparations and multiple other policy changes happened during this time window. And we just started to push it forward, and because of that, we're here today. We're here 4 years later. We commissioned an amazing report with 1,000 recommendations. We're starting to chip away. We're gonna get, I think, 10 to 12 signed by the governor in a couple days. Not the big ones, but we're getting, we're not hitting the home run today. We're hitting singles and doubles, and most importantly, we're gonna be at this for a number of years, well after I leave, and frankly, probably after these two distinguished individuals leave too. So we did start this process, and police reform measures were part of that process, were before, but it kind of goes to this up and downs. And what I've learned is you have to stay at it. You have to stay at it. So thank you.
Thank you. Last question here. There's a question about trust, and this is one that I think cuts both ways. Where some community members have felt like there's been a breach of trust. And there has been, I would say, also attacks that community members have levied against lawmakers. Per my statement earlier, I believe that we need each other in order to be able to advance any sort of reparative agenda. where do we go from here in terms of building that trust? How do we get to a place where community members, lawmakers are able to work together comprehensively around solutions that move forward?
Well, I think number one, I mean, this is why we have proactively made sure that we did the State of Black California, where we're actually going out to communities so that people don't have to come to Sacramento to be able to have their voices heard, and that they can give us input on, that gives us a better indication on what are the hopes and aspirations of our people on the ground, and that we can make sure that we're looking at that as we're deliberating on what the next bill packages are going to be. I think that also open communication throughout the year is also important, and particularly making sure that you know who your state legislators are, and making sure you're communicating with them also. Now, even though we're all members of the California Legislative Black Caucus, it's also important to know that I actually represent people back home too. My votes, what I introduce, and all those things are also going to be reflective of them as well. So you better believe if my people in my district are asking you to do something, then you better believe I'm going to take that seriously. You're going to believe I'm going to be meeting with them also. But also, I think what's also important is to think about how can we make each other successful also, right? How do we make sure that we are speaking with one voice? How do we make sure that even amongst our disagreements, right, that we're not tearing each other down, because we have plenty of people that do that every day. Do that, right? You have plenty of people in the community who are always trying to discredit your voice and weaken your voice and all that stuff. And so we've got to make sure that we're not doing that to each other. That is movement 101 in terms of how we're going to make sure that we get this done, right? And so there's no doubt we're going to always have disagreements in terms of tactics, in terms of how fast we go, or how big we go from one year to the next. But we all have the same North Star, right? And it's going to take us all working together to be able to get there. But one thing is for sure, right? And that is that if we have people who are threatening to go to people's houses and doing all those type of things, then that's also not productive as well. And so we have got to continue to communicate. There's never been a time where I've denied trying to be able to meet with people and give them some insights on what we're trying to do, what does the political landscape look like. But one thing is for sure is that we've got to all head in the right direction, and even amongst our disagreements, right, we have got to help each other be successful. Because if we're not successful, what I mean by successful is continuing to get these recommendations across the finish line.
So in other words, what McCarty just stated is that it's going to take time to pass all those bills in the
But I couldn't
regulations.
say
Is that
anything.
what you said,
I was
McCarty?
No, we're gonna.
Well, I will, so yes, I think
Is that, I'm trying
We're
to
gonna
understand.
keep-
I
Then
will
I have
say-
ADHD, I'm trying to understand.
one of the things one of the things I already shared was my belief around where we had confusion and frustration was that we were not aligned from the get-go around what it would take to be able to pass policies that related to 115 recommendations.
Okay,
So
so,
we were
Hold on,
always
please.
very clear as a caucus that this is going to be a multi-year effort. And it's going to require some building blocks in order to be able to do that. I actually do think that a building block, starting with the requirement to acknowledge the need for reparations and demand an apology, is a very, very strong building block, and that is happening this year. Now, again, not alignment around the things that followed after that. We were not on the same page, so how do we build trust? Let's try to get on the same page. Generally speaking, when people are yelling at me and don't give me an opportunity to speak, or don't give me an opportunity to listen, it's really hard to build trust. So I'll take the
You're an elected
yells,
official.
I'll take the yells.
You're an elected official.
What is
I'm an elected
Yeah, I mean,
official.
that's part of the job.
She's a person.
Part of the job.
Part of the
That
job.
doesn't mean anything.
Part of the job is you hear from the public. Even when you don't wanna hear from the
Oh,
public.
no, I don't want to hear from the public, I do hear from the public.
That's not what
I was
But
born
you're
and raised in the
giving
Bronx,
defensive
and I
right now.
represent Oakland.
You're-
I'm not being,
you're-
I'm not being
you're-
defensive,
you're
I'm
giving
very
defensive right
comfortable,
now.
I am very clear and very capable
Okay.
of having
So,
a
but
loud
you're giving defensive right
conversation.
now, okay?
So,
Right?
ma'am,
So
I'm
this is
just
part
Of
of the
having a
job.
loud conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
part- it's
asking.
part of the
I-
job.
Extra.
And we are not aligned.
We're gonna go ahead and abridge the
We
program.
are not aligned on no
We're gonna
apology.
go ahead and conclude the
That ain't no
program.
reparations. An
Ma'am.
apology is not reparations. And it's not a
Okay,
bill.
so-
There are
The building block of
115
the
recommendations.
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break.
Ma'am, well, I don't
We had-
understand,
yeah,
I
we
wanted
had an
him to
opportunity
answer
for
a
Q&A.
question.
We had an opportunity for Q&A. I mentioned earlier that the disruptions get us to a point where we can't get all the questions asked and answered. There is a consequence, y'all. There is a consequence. So the consequence is that we're gonna take a break before we segue to the next part of the program. We do have a poll that we would love for you all to participate in. We have a QR code that'll be on the screen in just a second here. We're gonna put that up and ask you to complete it, and it'll take 5 minutes, but essentially what we're asking for are your opinions on reparations in California in the context of what you've heard here today, or the work that you're working on in your community. The poll will close at the end of the day, so we wanna make sure that we get your insight, your inputs. Please complete it. Again, this is so that we can be sure that we have some documentation in addition to the record of the conversations here today. So we're gonna take 10 minutes to go ahead and have you complete that. We're gonna go ahead and give you a break right now, and then transition the members off the stage. Thank you so much.